If you're an accountant or someone who works in finance, then there's a strong possibility that at some point you'll end up preparing financial statements using Excel. And you might start out by pulling down a trial balance from your accounting or ERP system into a worksheet. Having done so, you may want to make some adjustment to these balances for depreciation, accruals, or anything that hasn't yet been posted into the general or nominal ledger. These type of adjustments are sometimes referred to as reporting journal entries or topside adjustments. This process works really well if you use the Excel add-in Power Pivot, as I'll show you now. I have here trial balances for June 2013 and June 2014. I've set them up as a Power Pivot linked table, or I've added them to the data model in Excel 2013 parlance. This is the corresponding table in Power Pivot. In reality, you'd probably bring in these balances directly from your accounting system or using a CSV file. Next, I've created an Excel worksheet into which I can enter my reporting journal entries with a journal entry number, the account code, date, debit, credit, and comment. And I've got some totals here to make sure the thing balances. This should be set up as a Power Pivot linked table. In this example, there are two other tables that you will need, one for account code and one for date. I've also created these as linked tables. This one is called time and has two dates in it. And you may wonder why we need a table just to hold two dates. I'll explain that in a minute. The other table is your chart of accounts. Again, I've created this as a linked table, but you'd probably download this directly from your accounting system, or it would come in as a CSV. It has an account code, an account description, a type, which is whether the account is normally debit or credit, and a couple of account groups. These are basically summarizations so that I don't have to report at the GL account code level. This is the diagram of the data model. This is the timetable with the two dates in it. This is the reporting chart of accounts that we just looked at. The journal entries are in this table, and the trial balance is over here. It has some extra calculated columns, which I'll explain in a second. You can see the relationships of the trial balance and journal entries tables to the timetable and to the chart of accounts table. Keep in mind that if your trial balances and journal entries are categorized by any other fields, such as department or entity, then you will need to have a table for departments or for entities, and you will need to relate your trial balances and journal entries to those tables in the same way that those tables are related to time and reporting chart of accounts. So let's go to the trial balances table. Take the covers off the calculated columns and see how this all comes together. I've added two calculated columns, one to bring in the journal entry debits and one to bring in the journal entry credits. Each one uses a DAX function. They're very similar, and you don't need to understand them. You can just copy them and use them. This calculated column uses the related table function to bring back the journal debits from the journal entries table. It then uses the SUMX function to add together all of those journal entries, because there might be several journal entries for the same account on the same day. As you would expect, this column does the same for the journal credits. And as you might equally expect, the adjusted trial balance is the balance, the original balance, plus the journal debits minus the journal credits. A couple of things I'll quickly mention here. I've assumed that the trial balance is one of those whereby debit balances are positive numbers and credit balances are negative numbers. If you have the type of system that maintains positive numbers for both, but then categorizes the type of account, it's easy to change. The other point I wanted to make, especially to anyone who's perhaps new to Power Pivot, is that these functions are the same down the whole column, and if you add more data, then they continue down the whole column. There's no need to copy additional formulas down as you add more rows, and there's no danger of having a different formula in one row from the row above it. And that makes the data model significantly more robust than a regular spreadsheet. This final column, value to report, is optional. It simply flips the sign on balances, credit balances that are stored as negatives that you may want to show up in reports as positives. And it does that using the account type. If it's a D, it multiplies the value by 1, doesn't do anything to it. If it's a C, it multiplies it by -1. It pulls the account type from the reporting chart of accounts table using the related function. The final product of all this is, in this case, a set of financial statements, a balance sheet, and an income statement. And these are built using cube value functions that retrieve data from the data model based on parameters fed in from column headers and row labels. Now over on the journal entries page, let's throw some additional year-end accruals in for entertainment. I'll grab these two rows here because I'm a bit slow at typing. Copy them here. I know that the account number is 71700 because I do a lot of entertaining. There's our journal entry. Now I click on the Update All button. It takes me to Power Pivot. It inserts my new journal entry in this table. And it's also inserted it in the trial balances table. Here's the debit side of the entry. Here are our financial statements. The accounts payable is this number here, and the travel and entertainment, this number here. I've taken a snippet of these and highlighted them. Now I click on the Data tab, Connections, the Power Pivot connection, which will be Power Pivot data for 2010 or this workbook data model for 2013, and click Refresh. You can see that the accounts payable has gone up by 500,000, and likewise the travel and entertainment. The accounts that are driving these cube value functions are the summarized accounts that we created in the reporting chart of accounts table. In fact, it's report group 2, which is an intermediate level of summarization between the general ledger account and these very summarized levels here. Always remember that if you create topside or reporting journal entries such as these, if they need to be made permanent, then you're going to have to go back in and book them into your accounting system. There's an article on this topic on the excelcraft.com website. There you'll find more information on Excel cube functions, which I haven't covered in this video. And thank you for watching.